Okay, let's get started. Thanks again for your patience. This webinar is about the latest version that we released in mid-November, Origin 2022. My name is Ishwar Iyer, Product Manager at Origin Lab. Welcome. And during the webinar, you're welcome to type questions into the Q&A window. You can also use the chat window, but we prefer the Q&A window. My colleague Yiming Chen is from tech support has joined as a panelist, so he may help answer the questions as well. Feel free to type in the questions. Okay. Let me start by first showing our web page. So our website is originlab.com, and you will see that the latest version icon is always available towards the middle of the website. So if I click on it, it'll open what we call the highlights page. So this page provides highlights of features in the most recent version. We have the highlights from all the past versions as well from this drop down if you would like to browse. So here we have information on how to get Origin 2022, which is just at the bottom of that page. If you have maintenance plan, you can simply install the new version. You might need permission from IT depending on what your situation is. We also have a link to YouTube. So if I click on this, it will open our YouTube channel where we have put a playlist with videos on these features. Okay, so if you want to view some of the features in depth, you could go check out the videos. And then if you scroll down the page, there are sections on each feature with links to our release notes. So if you click on a particular link, it might take you to our release notes, which will give a more detailed description on where is the GUI, what are the controls, etc. Okay, so after this webinar, you might want to visit this page to learn more. And I'm going to use Origin, of course, to show you the features, and I'm going to follow pretty much the same outline as on that page. Okay. All right, let's get started. Okay, so the first feature we want to look at is the object manager. So I have a couple of examples here for that. So let me walk through them. Here's a rather complex graph. It has two layers and it has an image, a map background that was inserted using our Google import app. We have several apps, as you may know, which are freely available for registered users. You can download and install them. And this particular graph has a map inserted. So over here on the right side, typically, you will see the apps window and an object manager window. I can, of course, drag the window. My WebEx is interfering with me. Okay, you can drag and let the window floating, or you can dock it. So object manager itself is not new. What's new is that now you can either view the plots in the graph. So there are two layers here. Each layer has one plot, or you can right click at the graph level and choose show graph objects. If I do that, it will pick up all the objects in the graph, which are the axis titles, the legends, any annotations, etc. So this is new in 2022. So for example, I can click on legend, a mini toolbar pops up. I can double click. I can click on buttons to make changes to the legend, such as say add a frame, change a font, whatever you like. I could select hold shift key and select multiple titles and increase the font size, for example. I can select objects such as say the line here. I can change the color. I can change the thickness. So this lets you interactively change annotations and object properties on your graph without having to go out to the graph itself and double click or click on the object. So you can do several things from the object manager itself. Okay. Hope this feature is useful to you. Another example, here I have a graph where I have multiple layers and I have curves here. So let me click on one of them and the graphic object is showing. Let me switch that back to plots. And what I wanted to show that now you can control select plots from each layer. And then you could do modifications to it, such as change the width or change the color, etc. Okay. So annotations across layers is also possible now. Okay. And in this case, sometimes we get tech support calls where user may say, my export is not working well. It's picking up a large area. That may be because sometimes you may have some junk objects on your page somewhere. So if I now switch back to show graph objects, you can see those objects here. There is a text object here. There is a layer object here. So you could select these and delete them directly from the object manager as well. Okay. This doesn't happen often, but it happens once in a while. There are objects far out on the page. You may have accidentally dragged them out. Okay. So check out the object manager with your graphs and please give us feedback. Okay. Next topic, notes and comments. We have made several improvements in terms of notes and comments in Origin. So let me show you a few examples. I'm going to dock this object manager over here on top of the apps. Okay, I don't need that anymore right now. So here I have a worksheet where I have done some batch analysis. Origin can perform batch analysis using an analysis template. If you're not familiar with that, you can look that up. We have tutorials, we have videos. So I processed 7 different files with some linear regression, and I have adjusted R-squared values here. And one of them happens to be a bad value. I have used conditional formatting. That's not a new feature. That feature existed before. I can use conditional formatting and give colors to the cell. So we picked up this color, red color for the cell. What's new in this version is I can even go add a note. So I can insert a note and I can say bad R-square because sensor was defective, for example. Okay, then that note stays. So you share with your colleague, you can say, check out my notes. I have flagged some cells. Okay. Also, if you have an Excel file that has notes in cells, if you import that Excel file, the notes will come in as well. Just keep in mind, Excel has 2 things. It has notes and comments. We don't bring in the comments. We only bring in the notes. Okay. Another aspect, we have a notes window in Origin, and many versions ago, we improved this notes window to support syntax in either HTML or Markdown format. If you are not familiar with that, you can look that up. So here I have set it up as a Markdown format. So if I right click here and choose render mode, it will show me the Markdown format. I can also do Control M to toggle between the raw text and the render mode. What's new is that I can go in here and insert images that are imported into the project. This is a new image window. I'll talk about this a bit more in the next subtopic, but I have an image imported here. So if I want to insert that image, I can just click this location, which is a table in Markdown. I can go to my HTML menu. I can say add links, okay, add graph or image. And then I can choose my image. It'll insert a certain syntax. This is Origin's syntax for referring to that image. I can go make adjustments such as the pixel width. Similarly, I can insert graphs in my project. That's not new. That existed in previous versions as well. So add links, add graph, and let me pick the graph. And again, there is a syntax, a specific Origin syntax. Once I have inserted these, I can do Control M to render. So now you can see I made a nice node report with some title, with some text, and a table with annotations, column names, and I could insert graphs and images. Okay. If you have not used HTML or Markdown in Origin before in the notes window, you might want to check out some of our tutorials and videos on that. Questions, comments, please feel free to type in the QA window, also in the chat window. Okay. Next feature related to comments, I have done a nonlinear fitting here on some data. The fit did not go well. you can see here it says the fit failed, did not converge, fix the offset in the exponential part. Okay, so what if I want to share this with a colleague? I can click on this tab and then I can right click and say name and comments. Okay, if I choose name and comments, I can of course change the name, but what's new is that I can add comments and add a color. So I can flag this with some color such as orange, and I can say, John, take a look at this fit result. I think we need a better model. Okay, for example, click OK. If I hover on it, it will show the nodes. Also, it will show it here. The object manager, it even shows that red color, as you can see. Okay, so this way you can share a project with your colleague and say, John, just take a look at the sheets that I flagged with red color, please. And you don't have to say anything more. The notes are right there. Okay, hopefully that's a useful feature for sharing projects with colleagues. If you like any feature, if it really stands out for you, we would love to hear your comments as well, because we are always looking to see what areas we should improve. So don't be shy, type your comments in the Q&A or chat window, please. Okay, moving on. Named range and autocomplete. Okay, let me work through a few examples of this. This feature existed in Excel for many versions. We have implemented in Origin. The idea here is I can give a name to a range of cells or a single cell and use them in calculations for easy reference and clarity of formula. So let's take a look at it with a few examples. So here I have abrasion results, measurements from two types of tires, tire A and tire B in columns A and B. Let me go ahead and click on column A. You will see the mini toolbar pops up, and one of the new buttons we added in this version is define name. So if I choose that, it'll ask me for a name. I can call this tire A. It has to be a name with at least 4 characters and no spaces. And you can define it at the project level, sheet level, or book level. What that means is if I define at the project level, I could go to another sheet, and that sheet, another book even, or another folder, and it'll still know what this name means. So it's up to you what the scope is. You can also put a comment. You can say abrasion data from tire type A. Click OK. And you can see the object manager shows it too. So I can go here and see it. Okay. Similarly, let me type a name, define a name for column B, tire B. Okay, data for tire type B, and click OK. And if you go here and if you double click on this, it opens a named range manager. So the named range manager will show you all of the names that you have defined in the project and what the scopes are. Obviously, I defined with project. I can even change the scope here. I can edit the comments here. I can even change the reference here in this name manager. The name manager is also available from the data menu. Okay, so once I define it, I can go even to a cell level and double click here and say equal to mean. Notice that as I type, it also auto completes. That's a new feature in this version. Okay, and to make it easy for you to find functions. So already tire A pops up. So I can calculate tire A. Similarly, I can go here and say equal to std. It immediately pops up the function. Our naming is a little different from Excel, so this auto pop-up really helps. Okay, so now I have the numbers, and even if I go add in some data, it will catch up because I had defined the name to be the entire column. Okay, so you get the idea. This is an example of defining name for an entire column. Now let's look at a different example. So here I have a couple of control variables. I want to smooth this noisy data using a moving average where I want to define a left and a right window. Okay. Now, if I click on a single cell, I get a button to define name, and watch what happens. If there is a text to the left of the cell, Origin will pick up that name. I can accept it. Of course, I can change it. I can simply accept it. So similarly, I go click here and click that button again. I define again. Now, if I go to the name manager, you can see the tire A, tire B are still there. And my two names are also the cells that I just defined are still there. Now I can go to my FX here and type equals MOV, moving average. Then I can browse and pick my function. I want this function, which is both a backward and forward window. And I want a smooth column B using left points for the left, comma, right points. Again, note that the auto complete pops up. So there is a smooth curve. I can go here and change this. I can change it to 25, for example, and you can see that the output updates. So not only can you define and use in formula, it also auto updates. Okay. Don't see any questions or comments, feel free to type them. Okay, let's look at one more example in this area. So here I have some XY values, some sensor measurement, for example, and I want to create a neat table here of new Y values for X equals 1 to 10. Okay, let me just stretch that. You can also autofill in Origin, okay, similar to Excel. So there are ways to do that with some tools from Origin, but the naming method makes it much more easier. So let me demonstrate. So I can click on this Y, click on the name, and I can give it a name such as Y data. And I'm going to define it at the project level. And I'm going to say define it as a function. What that would mean is that it takes the Y and the X to the left and treats that as a function based on the points. Okay. Once I do that, I can even go to the script window and I can say Y data of 3 equals. So what Origin will do is Origin will use this table of X and Y and do interpolation to give me the interpolated value. Okay. So it's using the data as a function. So I can go here now and in my new Y, I can type Y data of column C. Okay. So then that's going to compute the Y values at these new X values based on the relationship between this X and Y. And you can see the red points are populated in the graph. I had pre-loaded the graph with the columns B and D. That's why you can see both of them there. Okay. By the way, the recording of this webinar and the project will be given to you. So you can, I want to quickly show on the support on our website. If you go to support and if you go to training webinars, you can scroll down a bit and look at all recorded webinars. So today's webinar will show up here early next week. So you can come play the video, download the project file. Okay. All right. So those are examples of named range. Hopefully that's a useful feature. We would love to hear from you if it needs to be expanded further. Okay. Moving on. Let's look at inserting images in a graph. Okay. So often you may want to annotate a graph with an image to publish it or use it in a presentation at your conference, for instance. So here I have a graph that my colleague James gave me. And there is a related image for this particular graph. It's a Cooper paired transistor. So there is a microscopic image that I want to insert. So with the graph active, I can go to the insert menu and I can choose image from file. Okay. This menu existed before, but it behaved in a limited way and we have improved it. So let me demonstrate. So here is the image I want to import, insert into the graph. I double click to bring it in. Okay. The image comes in. Now, I don't want the entire image. I want to crop it. Okay. So, or rather clip it. There are two options. So I can double click on this image and it opens the image in a new image window. So this is what's new in 2022. So now I can go to the left here, or rather click on the image itself, and there are some buttons here, useful buttons such as rotate, flip, etc. There's also an ROI. So I can draw an ROI, okay, for example, like this, and I can right click and I can say clip this image for graph 2. So you will see it's clipped. Then I can close this. It goes back in there. I double click. I can open it again. I can make adjustments to my ROI. Maybe I wanted to capture also the scale marker here. Okay. And adjust it again. Right click, either clip or crop. Crop would remove what's outside of that window. Clip would simply clip it and keep the entire image. Okay, then you can move the image to wherever you want. You can right click and say bring it to the front, so it will put it on top of the data or the lines. Okay. Questions, comments? Okay. Let's move on and look at the image feature with a few other examples. Okay. You can also use an image as a background in a graph. So let me show a couple of examples of using an image and calibrating it. So here I had already imported an image. It was a large map that I wish to put as a background to these two graphs here. With large images, Origin would automatically remove the image from the project and keep a link so that the project size itself is not too large. It's your choice. You can override that, but above a certain image size, Origin will automatically do that starting with 2022. So it says linked file not yet loaded, right click to import. So if I right click and if I say import, it'll bring in that image. Okay. And you can see it's a very large map file. I can do A key to zoom in. There's a lot of detail here. It's from a town, East Hampton, close to where our office is. Okay, let me now see how to put this image into the graphs. So one step to do that would be go to the image menu and set coordinates. So I have already done that for this image. It remembered the coordinates. In my case, I know the map goes from a certain latitude range and longitude range in degrees. I have put all of this in already. Okay. So if you bring in a new image, new map image, you can go to this menu and bring up this dialog to calibrate it. Okay. Once calibrated, I can go here and I can go to the insert menu and say image from image window. I already have an image window, so I want to use that. Then a dialog comes up and it asks me, do you want to use it as a layer background? Yes. Do you want to rescale the layer? I don't want to rescale the layer. I want Origin to find only that part of the image which applies to this range of data. Okay. So I leave it unchecked and click OK. And there is my graph in the background. I can go to another graph which has a different latitude, longitude, but belongs to the same map area. And I can do the same thing again. So image from image window, leave that box unchecked and click OK. So this way I took a map, I took different sections of the map and used them to annotate as graph layer background in two different graphs. Okay. All right. Let's look at another example of calibration. So I'm going to bring in that Cooper transistor image again. I'm going to go file, new image. Okay. And then bring in that image. And you will see that in this image, as I move my mouse around, it's showing the pure pixel numbers, right? Over here, though, I have a marker, and this marker says this particular bar is 1 micrometer. So let's see how to calibrate this. So in this case, I have a marker. So I will use a different menu, which would be set scale, not set coordinates. Set coordinates is if you know the starting and ending X and Y values. Here, all I care is the marker. So I use set scale, and that would bring up a dialog and it places this region of interest tool, okay, which I can resize and move around. And I can hold down the A key to zoom in so I can be more precise. Okay, then I can drag this and position this so that I am marking the image, I'm using that marker to define my horizontal distance. Okay, all I need to do is 1. It'll assume the same scale for scaling for the Y. So now that I have marked it, I can go here and say, yeah, that's 1 micrometer. let me call it UM, not MM. Okay, and it's telling me 109 pixels per millimeter is my calibration. I click OK, and now it's calibrated. Now when I move my mouse around, you will see it showing X and Y values, which are using that scale calibration that I set. Now, if I go to the image and plot it, I get a graph, and you can see the graph scales are actually using the scaling that I did. So this is about for close to 5 micrometers. As you can see, that makes sense. Okay. Now, what's nice is that I can go to the line tool and draw a line here. I'll hold the shift key to draw a perfectly horizontal line. If I click on that line, it will show me in the window here in the status bar that my DX is 0.2. Okay, so that may be a useful tool for you to go around and measure things once you set the scale of the image. We don't have too much of other measurements and image related features yet. So what we would like is really your feedback. If you work with images, you want to do a certain number of things in Origin with images. Now that we have this new image window, you could tell us what you would like to see, and we would implement that in the next version, or we might create apps. So for example, if I go File, New, Image, and if I go to multiple image files, you can even bring in, for example, a bunch of TIFF files. So let me go to Origin sample folders and go to image processing folder. See, folder name. Oh, let me say specified files. Okay, let me go to samples folder, image processing. Oh, it says PNG. I wanted TIFF. So here are a bunch of TIFF files. As you know, TIFF file can be multi-frame too. That works in Origin as well. So I can add these and click OK. Okay, and then it will import those as a stack, as an image stack. So then you get a slider, so you can see that all the images are here as a stack. We are working on an app to do profiling into the stack. So if you are working with images and there are certain features that you would like, we would love to hear your comments so we can provide those features to you. Okay, let's move on. The next feature I want to demonstrate is grids in layouts and graphs. Okay, the feature of turning on a grid already existed in Origin before, but we have made some improvements. So let me show that. So here I have a layout page. A layout is like a single slide of PowerPoint where I can combine graphs, images, titles, text, etc. to create a presentation slide. This could be exported as PDF, PNG, etc. If I click inside, a mini toolbar will pop up. And what's new is we have this button here for showing grid. I can turn on the grid. I can go here and I can go to grid settings. Okay, and I can even use an offset. So for example, my grid right now is 0.5 inches. I can say, give me an offset of 0.25 vertical, please. So there's a 0.25 offset there. Okay, then I can click again and I can say snap to grid, snap everything to grid. So now if I drag and bring it close to a particular corner, it will snap to that corner. Right, so I'm bringing the graph, it snapped there. I'm bringing the image, it snapped there. I can extend this image. I can take this object and snap it as well. Then I can click my button and say turn off the grid. So now I have everything nicely aligned. Okay. Do you like this feature? Please comment. Okay, let me show the same thing in a graph. Okay, so in the graph, I have a multi-layer graph here with many inset layers and text labels, etc. So let me go click here. And again, I see that button. So what I want is page grid. Okay, click on page grid. Click here and go page grid settings. I have set it to centimeters in this case. Okay, that's suitable for my graph. It remembered what I did last time. There is also snap layers to grid, snap objects to grid. Let me turn those on. You can turn them on and off from this object as well. So now I can do things such as shift and click and select all my layers and move them and like snap them to a particular corner. So they are nicely snapped. I can take this and snap it there. If I have another text label, I can right click and bring up my properties, and in the properties dialog in position, I can say anchor is on right top. Okay, so then it will use the right top to snap. Okay, so depending on how you want to snap the text object, you can do that. So let me then go select these insert layers and move them and snap them as well nicely so they look aligned. Okay, here's another one. They are snapped. So I can do similar things with my legend. Okay. All right. So now we can go click here and turn off the grid. So we started with the messy graph and now we have everything lined up. Okay. All right. Okay. The next feature, we have quite a few features in this version. It's a broad spectrum of features, and we hope some features or the other appeal to you. And we would love to hear your comments. If a certain feature stands out as in, wow, I was waiting for this all these years, we would love to hear your comments. Okay, so download templates from Origin Lab website. As you know, Origin has over 150 templates for graphs, many templates for workbooks as well. Customers keep asking for new graph templates. So rather than putting everything into the plot menu, we have quite a few. As you can see, in recent versions, we have improved this dialog, made it look really pretty, quite nice icons, etc. But what we have done is also now decided to provide templates for you from our cloud, from our website. Here, let me show you how that works. So if I go to the Tools menu, under App Center, there is a new menu called Template Center. So if I open that, it opens a dialog. You may be familiar with App Center. I can show you that if you want me to show. App Center is for downloading apps. The Template Center has a very similar interface. And here you can see there are many graph templates waiting for you. You can browse, look at them, and if you like a particular one, you can download it. You can even search. So for example, I can search with the name group to see what group graph templates are available. Then I can simply click the download button to download a few. Okay. All right. I can do a similar thing with the book as well. We have recently been adding book templates. Okay. So let me show you all the book templates, and let me go here and say regression. Okay, show me the regression template. So there is a ridge regression that uses Python. There is a regression clustering that uses Python. As you know, we have embedded Python in Origin, so we can make templates that will call the Python code to perform the computation. So once I have downloaded, I can close this template center. Now, to access the ones I downloaded, I can keep a book active here and go to the plot menu, and there is a template library. This button is not new, but we redesigned the dialog. Okay, in the dialog, you can look at system templates. You can look at user templates, which are templates that you create, or you can look at extended templates. Extended templates are the ones you downloaded. So you can see there are a bunch of group templates that I just downloaded. You can view them in this interactive mode, or you can view them in this list mode. In both cases, in this case, you have a pop-up, a nice pop-up, which tells you what is the graph about, what is the expected data structure for it. Okay, so for example, let's look at group pyramid plot. I select that row. We even have an open sample. So if I click the open sample, it's going to append that to my project. I can close now, and you can see it added a new folder. Here is the sample graph. So the nice thing about it is you immediately understand the data structure required for this graph. You can play around, maybe even paste your data here to replace it and understand how to use that graph. Okay, so it's very interactive. The same thing applies to the system templates as well. Just so you know, I turn off the extended templates, I turn on the system templates. I can look at the system templates and choose a particular one, for example, say scatter plus rug, and I can do open sample for the system templates as well. Okay, so that will open a sample. Then you can go look at that sample for details. Okay. All right. How about the workbook templates that I downloaded, the regression ones? Those you can access from the File, New, Workbook, or Metrics menu. We have templates for both workbook and metrics. So if I go here and if I go to Browse, you will see, again, we have user and extended. So here are the interpolation templates the regression templates that I just downloaded. I can click on regression clustering and I can click open. Okay. And then I close this. There's my regression clustering examples. I'm not going to run this example because I need to first install Python packages. You can try it. If you click this button, it will go ahead and install Python. I don't want to wait for it. So just wanted to show you that these templates we can create easily and add more to the cloud, and you just download the ones that you like. So under Tools menu, under Template Center, there is also a Suggest New. If you click there, you can even send us a request and we'll work on it. And then we'll let you know. And you can go here and find the template. Okay. All right. The next one is Simplified Graph Export and Copy Page. Okay. So here I have a graph. You may already be familiar with the export graphs dialog that we had in past versions. We renamed that as advanced. Let me just open it to show you. You may have been using this export dialog for many versions now. It's quite complex. There are many controls here. Users may not always need all those controls. So what we did was we added a simplified dialog, export graph, and let me open the dialog and show you. All it does is it provides the most commonly used export formats. Okay, as you know, nowadays journals accept TIFF or PNG, etc. You can even export as EMF to bring into other applications if you like. Of course, copy page does EMF as well. But here, for example, if I choose PNG, you can simply specify the DPI and the width in pixels. So you can go here and change the width, etc., and just export it quickly. You can also save it as a theme for repeat use, similar to how all of our dialogues support the theme feature. Okay. Another new feature is if you go to the edit menu, there is copy graph as image. Copy page is a very old feature. Nothing much has changed with that. You can copy page to go paste in Word, double click to open in a new instance of Origin to edit the graph, etc. Copy graph as image, on the other hand, is a simple dialog now. So here again, I can choose format and I can do scaling. So for example, I can say, give me a 20% ratio of this particular one and copy. Now I have copied it on the clipboard. I can go paste it in my email as a small image. Okay, so check that out. That may be quite useful for your workflow. Okay, next one, connect to OneDrive and Google Drive. Okay, so you may as a group or individually keep all your data files on OneDrive or Google Drive, and obviously you can have a folder on your computer that you use to sync with the cloud. But what if you go to any random PC and you just want to grab the file from the cloud for immediate use without syncing? So what we did here is that we have added under the data menu a connect to cloud. As you may know, if you have been using recent versions of Origin, we have connect to file. Okay, we have connect to web, we had connect to database. Those all existed in the previous few versions. What's new is connect to cloud. So if I click on it, a dialog will open where you have a choice of OneDrive versus Google Drive. I have OneDrive already connected to my Origin Lab Hotmail address that we use as a demonstration. If you do this, you might first see a browser that asks you to log in to authenticate. So only after you authenticate, Origin will be able to connect. Okay, so I have already connected. I have some files here. I can simply choose a file and click open. And then the data comes in from the cloud. And this is the data connector. You can see if I hover on it, it shows it's connected to OneDrive. Okay. So the idea here is that if your OneDrive file changes, let's say you replaced it tomorrow with new data, you can come to Origin, click here. This DC data connector icon will actually turn yellow if it detects that the file has a new timestamp. Then you can click import to re-import the data. Okay. The same thing works for other files. So you could even put an Origin project on your cloud. Then I can go to data, connect to cloud. And here, for example, I have an Origin project called tutorial data. And it'll open a different dialog. It might take a moment to download that file to a temporary location from my cloud. Okay, so this is the delay in talking to Hotmail to get the file. And that happens to be a somewhat large file. So I can then drill through here, look at a particular worksheet, see what the columns are, and I can say, okay, bring that one in. Double click or use this arrow to add and click OK. And then my data will come in. And the nice thing about the Origin connector is it even shows the structure. So I can go to another book, another sheet, and I can right click and say add and connect that sheet. So I can keep bringing in only those data sheets from my project that I currently need. Okay. And this, of course, works currently for a few formats like Excel, text, CSV, and Origin projects. We have also added an open from cloud. Okay. So the idea with open from cloud is that you're not connecting, you're just opening the file. Again, I'm just using OneDrive. Okay. And let me just bring in that same data file. It does not work for projects, by the way. We cannot open projects currently. So if I choose a data file, you will see that the data comes in, but there is no data connector icon. So this is disconnected from the file. If the cloud changes, this will not change. So this is a quick and dirty import just to get the data. Questions, comments? Okay, we have a couple more things to go over. New graph types. So let me show that from the highlights page. So earlier I alluded to the page on our website that has the highlights. So if you go to originlab.com and click on 2022, you will see sections here. You can scroll down and read. This is pretty much the order I have been following. So I just wanted to show here because the graphs may look nicer here. So we have a pie map plot where you can take fraction values at different locations on an XY grid, whether it's a map grid or let's say you're measuring something on a surface XY, you can then plot it in that relative XY space as pie charts. Okay, here's another example of it. This is looking at iron concentrations, and we have put a Google map in the background of where those samples were taken from. Okay, so it's longitude and latitude in this case. Okay, we have a cluster plot with a centroid and lines drawn to each data point. This is useful when you're working with principal component analysis to look at the relationship between your principal components and is there overlap, etc., and how the data points are scattered around the centroid. There is a sunburst plot. There are multiple variations of this. Okay, this is another data infographic plot. We have been adding many of these in recent versions of Origin. If you have spectroscopy data or any data that has like a distribution along your x-axis, in this case, this is a simple example of temperature measurements over multiple cities for given months. So you can see across the continental US, so you can see sort of the distribution in the temperature. Okay, it may be more useful for you to work with spectroscopy data for this plot type. Another variation of that some other improvements to floating bar plots, etc. Also in Origin, there is a F11 key for opening Learning Center. So if you open Learning Center, you may already know this. There are graph samples, analysis samples, learning resources. So I can come here and type 2022 and search. Then it will show me many different graphs, samples from 2022. For example, here is a more complex sunburst plot. I can click OK and open that. Okay. And then typically these samples have notes in them. So you can go read the notes, look at the data structure, change that around. Let me click F11 again. And let me bring in this particular one. That's an interesting one. We have had multiple customers ask about filling area up to an axis. So that's a new feature we added. Previous versions, we can only fill between two data sets. Now you can arbitrarily fill to a data set or to the y-axis or to the x-axis. So all of those controls, let me just double click and open. Those controls are all in plot details. You can see, you can fill to next plot, okay, etc. Okay, you can also fill many different ways of filling here. Okay, so check that out. So it will help you make phase diagrams, for example. Okay, all right. The last feature, apps. You may already know we have hundreds of apps available. You can simply click this App Center, Add Apps button. If the apps window is not visible, you can go to the view menu and turn it on. So when you click on it, this is the easiest way to download. You can also go to the website to download, but this is better. Sometimes your firewall might block you from downloading using this tool. Then you could go to the website. I'll show you in a minute where it is on the website. So we have put up many new apps. For example, here there's a surface roughness parameter. It requires Origin 2022. So apps have a minimum version requirement. So I can click this to download. Okay. And the apps that you download will immediately show here. Okay. So here I can go right click and sort my apps by newest install, recently used, or alphabetical. Okay. Let me quickly show you on the highlights page the apps that we added. So there are several apps. Every version we add 5 to 10 apps. And we also add apps during version. So we have over 300 available now. So if you run into a situation where Origin cannot do a certain graph or analysis or import or whatever it is, we would love to hear from you. For example, this was based on a user, multiple users asking us for an N42 connector, which is used for importing data from radiation monitoring devices, typically used in Homeland Security. So it's a custom import routine that we created. These are all free. Okay. I mentioned that sometimes the add apps may not work. If that's the case, you can come to the website, go to Communities, User File Exchange, and that's where all the apps are. So you can click on a particular app, for example, structural equation modeling, and download the file and simply drag and drop the file onto Origin. Okay. Last but not the least, going back to this page, at the very bottom, we also have a bunch of other improvements. Sometimes these small improvements may make a big change in your workflow. So you might want to check that out. Also, if you click on any of these links, it takes you to the release notes. So you can view the release notes as well. All the version 2022 release notes are here. Okay. Questions, comments? Was this useful? That's pretty much what I wanted to show today. If you have questions, comments, feel free to type them. The recording will be available early next week. Again, you can go to the support menu, click on training webinars, scroll down, all recorded webinars, and this is where it will show up. If you don't have any questions or comments, you all have a nice weekend. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you for attending.